Being in Korea, you don't feel Korean enough. In America, you don't feel American enough. So you're stuck on that hyphen.
Meet Danny Chung, the multi-talented Bangkok-based Korean-American singer, rapper, songwriter, composer, and talent scout for the hottest label in South Korea, the Black Label. He's the singing voice behind Baby Saja, the youngest member of the demon boy band the Saja Boys in K-pop Demon Hunters, the runaway surprise hit that's rewriting history at Netflix and Billboard. On the surface, Baby Saja is the youngest, most innocent-looking member of the boy band, but when he gets on stage, he's the most savage.
Thank you for the pain, 'cause it got me going viral.
In addition to singing and rapping, Danny is a co-writer for a couple of the biggest songs in that movie. On the surface, his life may sound like all glitz and glam, but Danny's own origin story could have been its own movie. Hidden family secrets, a double identity, a childhood swinging between rags and riches. So how did a Philly kid with a fractured past turn himself into one of the hidden forces behind modern K-pop, and the unexpected voice of a fictional boy band that went on to crush real-world idols? No one expected K-pop Demon Hunters to be the biggest cultural moment of the year, but it was. What looked like a quirky animated musical for kids about K-pop idols fighting demons turned into a global pop phenomenon. It's the biggest movie in the history of Netflix, and there's already Oscar buzz. The soundtrack stormed all the way to number 2 on the Billboard 200 album chart, becoming the highest charting movie soundtrack of 2025. It's also the first soundtrack in history to have 4 songs simultaneously in the top 10 of the Billboard Hot 100 singles chart. These singles are from fictional K-pop bands that are beating records set by real-world K-pop groups like BTS and Blackpink. Danny's voice is on 2 of those top 4 songs, Your Idol and Soda Pop. In addition, he has co-songwriting credits for How It's Done and Soda Pop. Other than EJ, the superstar singer-songwriter behind most of the songs in the album, Danny is the only other person who can boast credit for both singing and songwriting on this record-breaking soundtrack. So, who is Danny Chung? Danny Chung was born and raised in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He was an only child in an immigrant family, and nothing about his childhood was stable. His parents came from South Korea to chase the American dream. For the first 10 years of Danny's life, his family moved just about every year. Philly, Chicago, New Jersey, back to Philly. One year, his parents were running Dunkin' Donuts and 7-Eleven shops, living large. The next year, it all collapsed. Money gone. House gone. Another move, another school, another reset. Danny grew up on that cycle of rags to riches and back again, never knowing which version of home he'd return to. But the chaos wasn't just financial, it was cultural too. In America, Danny was the Korean kid who never quite fit in. During family trips to South Korea, he was the American kid who stuck out. Too Korean to be fully American, too American to be fully Korean. That cultural tightrope defined his childhood, always balancing, never belonging.
When you're a hyphenated American, you tiptoe and you have to tightrope between that hyphen, of Korean and American. That hyphen is literally like a tightrope. You're trying to balance where you stand. I visited Korea a lot, even throughout my childhood. Being in Korea, you don't feel Korean enough. In America, you don't feel American enough. So you're stuck on that hyphen.
You're stuck on that hyphen. That's a feeling of isolation, anxiety, and instability that any hyphenated kid can relate to. And when the world felt too lonely for this hyphenated kid, music became the home where Danny finally felt like he belonged. While growing up, he loved hip-hop and gangsta rap, and he gravitated to hyper-masculine icons like Tupac, Biggie, Wu-Tang, and DMX, perhaps seeking a father figure in this parallel universe. Their words toughened him, and their grit gave him armor. But even with music in his headphones, Danny couldn't shake one question. Why did he always feel like he was living a double life? That answer wouldn't come until a trip to the DMV, when a single piece of paper would flip his world upside down. At 16, Danny thought he was doing something every teenager does, heading to the DMV with his dad to get his driver's license. But that seemingly mundane milestone turned into the moment his entire life shattered. On the way there, he casually asked his dad if he could see his birth certificate. To his surprise, his dad beat around the bush and avoided this simple request. That reaction told Danny something wasn't right. So later, Back at home, curiosity got the better of him. He snooped. He searched through drawers, files, anywhere he could, and then he found it. His birth certificate. And that's when the truth hit like a punch to the gut. The woman he had called aunt, that was his real birth mother. The woman he had called mom wasn't his mother. She was his aunt, his birth mother's older sister. And the man listed as his birth father? A complete stranger.
I just snooped around my parents' room to find that birth certificate. I found it and I took a look at it, and then I looked at the mother's name and the father's name, and I recognized the mother's name was actually my aunt's name. So the woman I grew up calling my aunt, was my actual birth mother. And the father's name was a name I completely did not know at all. It was just a stranger.
In one instant, everything he thought he knew about his family, his identity, his place in the world, collapsed. But instead of confronting anyone with his discovery, Danny did the unthinkable. He repressed it. His life was already unstable, and he figured that saying anything would just make things worse. So he quietly put his birth certificate back where he found it and moved on with his life. Let's pause here and think about that for a moment. Imagine the heartbreak of his birth mother, who had to watch in silence from a distance, while her older sister raised her son. Imagine the anger directed at the birth father, who for whatever reason abandoned his son and failed to take his share of responsibility for the situation. These are complex emotions that deserve attention, but instead of seeking counseling, he immersed himself in his music, and his music became his therapy. Danny understood that he couldn't control his family's lies, but he could control his name. By his late teens, he dropped Danny and became Decipher, a rapper grinding through the Asian American college circuit. Every weekend he was on the road, spitting bars in small clubs, rocking student festivals, proving that a Korean kid from Philly could go toe-to-toe in hip-hop. And for a while it worked. He dropped albums, he battled, he built a name, but there was one problem. Decipher didn't have an identity. One night he'd rap about Philly street life, the next he'd be crooning love songs. He was versatile. Too versatile. Fans never knew who they were getting. And deep down, neither did he. It was the same problem that haunted him since childhood. Belonging nowhere, stuck between worlds. On stage, confidence was his armor. Off stage, the confusion haunted him. But here's the irony. The very flaw that held him back as an artist would become his greatest weapon as a songwriter. That flexibility, that ability to shape-shift between sounds, was exactly what K-pop needed. And soon, a test from one of K-pop's biggest players would change Danny's life forever. On a trip to Seoul, fate threw him into a meeting with Teddy Park, the co-founder of the Black Label and the legendary K-pop producer behind Blackpink, Big Bang, and 21. Teddy wasn't about small talk. He sized Danny up and tossed down a challenge. Write me a verse. You've got 20 minutes. Most people would have choked. 20 minutes to impress Teddy Park? That's the kind of pressure that crushes careers before they even start. But Danny's years of grinding as Decipher had prepared him for this exact moment. He locked in, wrote fast, and when he spit the verse, it hit. Raw, sharp, unforgettable. That verse landed in a hit song by South Korean rapper and singer CL. That was Danny's big break. So he packed his bags, moved to Seoul, and joined Teddy's family at the Black Label as a songwriter. Almost overnight, the same kid who once hustled college clubs in America was now penning hooks and verses for the biggest girl group in the world, Blackpink. His fingerprints were all over hits like Lovesick Girls, How You Like That, and Shutdown, Philly grit wrapped in K-pop glitter. But just when Danny thought he had found his lane as a hitmaker, another opportunity appeared. One that wasn't just about writing songs, it was about writing stories. And it would take him beyond K-pop, all the way to Hollywood. In 2021, Marvel tapped him to co-write Nomad for the soundtrack of Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, the first Asian superhero film in the Marvel universe. For Danny, this wasn't just another credit on the resume, this was history. For a Korean-American kid who grew up stuck on that hyphen, this wasn't just a song. It was validation that he and every other kid of Asian descent belonged everywhere. When it comes to movies, nothing's bigger than a Marvel movie. Or so he thought. But soon, an even bigger Hollywood opportunity landed in his lap. One that would demand not just his pen, but also his voice. A project that would turn Danny Chung into the unlikeliest idol of them all. In 2022, his friend Agnes Lee contacted him. She was an associate producer for K-pop Demon Hunters at Sony Pictures Animation, and she asked him if he would be interested in being part of it. An animated musical about a K-pop girl group secretly hunting demons? The concept sounded like a huge step down from a Marvel movie. But intrigued, Danny joined the music team as both a songwriter and as a singing voice for Baby Saja, working alongside his compatriots from the Black Label and with executive music producer Ian Eisendrath. Danny helped build both sides of the battle. For the heroines, Huntrix, he co-wrote How It's Done alongside EJ and Mark Sonnenblick. How It's Done is the fierce debut song for the girls and the dynamic opening number for the entire movie. For their rivals, the Saja Boys, he helped craft Soda Pop, along with fellow Black Label songwriters Vince and Kush. Kush is the other co-founder of the Black Label along with Teddy Park. Soda Pop is the debut song for the boys, and the directors of the movie instructed the songwriting team to come up with a catchy song, but without any soul. Needless to say, they delivered. Soda Pop is so catchy that once you hear it, you can't get it out of your head.
Flip the top, I'ma come make you hit the spot. Every little drip, the drop, fizz and pop. So I'm told that it's getting hot.
When it came time to record the vocals, Danny was the singing and rapping voice for Baby Saja in both Soda Pop and Your Idol.
Thank you for the pain, cause it got me going viral. Oh yeah, Nadia and the fever, making you a believer.
K-pop Demon Hunters was released on Netflix on June 20th, 2025, and Your Idol quickly shot to #1 on Spotify's US chart. 2 months after its release, Your Idol is still #2 on that chart, Soda Pop is #3, and How It's Done is #4. For the past couple of months, Danny has been living in a surreal world. He had built a career shaping lyrics that other idols would sing. But now, his voice was singing in the ears of millions around the planet in songs that were outperforming the biggest idols in the real world. With his success, Danny could have stayed in Seoul, comfortably writing hits for Blackpink and coasting off K-pop Demon Hunters' glory. But that's not Danny. He's currently building a future in Bangkok, Thailand. Why Thailand? Lisa from Blackpink is from Thailand, and Danny believes that the next big cultural wave will come from that country, and from Southeast Asia in general. A few years ago, he helped launch the Black Sea, a new label in partnership with the Black Label and the CP Group, the largest private company in Thailand. In his new role, he's scouting Thai artists, running auditions, and shaping fresh talent into the next wave of international stars. This is not a small side project. Danny has said he's ready to put in a decade if that's what it takes. And if history has taught us anything, when Danny Chung bets on a sound, he's usually right. Danny Chung's story has never been simple. He's lived through secrets that could have broken him, identities that never quite fit, and an industry that doesn't usually let outsiders in. The kid who once discovered his real mother on a birth certificate has gone on to shape the soundtracks of Blackpink, Marvel's Shang-Chi, and Netflix's K-pop Demon Hunters. The search for his identity has taken him from Philly to Seoul to Hollywood and now to Bangkok, where he's building a future for Southeast Asian artists. So, who is Danny Chung? Maybe his true identity isn't found in the hits we already know. Maybe it'll be found in the careers of the stars he's about to launch.